How can AI make better writers? Well, I think it's a pretty good research tool. It can be used to help reading comprehension. You can use it as an editor, as you guys probably all know. And you could even use it as a writing tutor to learn about writing. So first off, research aid. So I think that, you know, ChatGPT, it's pretty good for getting an overview of a topic. Like I would have used Wikipedia before, but you know, ChatGPT is just as good. Also, it's very useful for getting different perspectives on a topic. So say you're researching something and you want to kind of better understand counter arguments or better understand different positions in the conversation. Generative AI is great for this. So say you're researching cryptocurrency, you might ask it, you know, what is cryptocurrency? What are some arguments for the use of cryptocurrency? And what are some arguments against the use of cryptocurrency? That can provide you a good overview of the topic. Of course, everything it says might not be correct, but in this case, we're not probably focused on, you know, whether something's 100% correct. We're just trying to get a general outline of the conversation, which it would be good for. So another thing I think ChatGPT is good for is helping students read. So you can use ChatGPT to summarize texts. You can use it to simplify complex or technical language. This is a huge issue for second language learners especially. You're given a very complex article and expect to read it, but it's just above your comprehension level. Well, one thing you can do is you can put it into ChatGPT, have ChatGPT provide a summary of the article, and then use that summary as a roadmap to help you learn or help you read the article. So you may ask things like, translate the following to non-technical language, summarize the following, stuff like that. All right, also, as you probably know, it's a pretty good editor, proofreading tool. You can have it do things like rewrite the following to be grammatically correct, or rewrite something to be more clear and direct, or use more varied vocab. But doing this, you know, it's good for polishing texts, you know, making sure your text is nice before you hand it in, but it doesn't really help you learn. But you can use generative AI to learn about writing. You can ask generative AI to provide general writing advice, like or provide you with model texts, or even you can input your own text and have these tools provide you feedback about how to rewrite. Is it going to be perfect? No. It's often the advice it gives is kind of general and like cliche, but it's better than nothing. So you could ask things like, what information should a business proposal contain? Or show me a model of a high-scoring IELTS essay. Or even explain how I can make my text easier to read. Hello? I've done all these things, and I think it's pretty effective. Not perfect, but okay. So those are the two sides of the spectrum. Oops. Either we can try to restrict the use of AI tools, or we can embrace the use of AI tools, right? And I've done this talk a lot, and I actually used to stop here. But the more I think about these topics, I think it's not sufficient. Neither of these options are really totally sufficient. It's not enough to just continue to do the same old thing in terms of the writing assignments we assign, and just use tools to do them in new ways. I think actually what's necessary is we just have to change how we use writing. We need to evolve. And what I mean by this is we need to change the way we design writing tasks. And for two reasons we need to do this. One is to limit the utility of AI tools. We want to add friction to the writing process so that students can't offload too much cognitive labor to their tools. But also, I think we need to promote new literacy skills. And so this involves a recognition that in light of technological change, some of the literacy skills we value are now relatively less important. They're less important because tools can easily do this work. But rather than like thinking this is a bad thing, we think it's a good thing, because now writing teachers are free to help students develop capacities in other relatively more important areas. So now that the tools can do a lot of the stuff we used to teach, we are free to teach other things that are relatively more important. So what is the thing we want to teach? Well, for me, it always comes back to, when I think about these things, the ability to solve ill-structured problems. So ill-structured problems, a technical term, but it simply means a problem with no preset solution. It's a problem that, in order to solve it, you have to understand the exact situation, and you often have to balance competing constraints. And conveniently, these are problems that computers can't solve for us. Computers can help us solve these sorts of problems. But these sorts of problems involve deep understanding of context, deep understanding of our world, much of which, to get a little philosophical, can't be measured or quantified. So computers have fundamentally no access to it. But we do, because we're humans. So these are human skills. So how do we go about teaching the ability to solve ill-structured problems? Well, certainly we have to provide students the opportunity. We have to give them the chance to solve problems that have no preset solutions. We have to confront them with situations where they have to make their own means and ends. Also, we need to provide them with the tools to solve the problems. Often our disciplinary knowledge are tools that students can use to solve ill-structured problems. But more broadly, I think that if we're serious about helping students better engage ill-structured problems, we have to try to promote certain dispositional tendencies. Something that I broadly call attunement. So what I mean by attunement, simply put, it's like the ability to notice, to make full use of our sensory capacities to understand and shape our world. So attunement involves looking outward, but it also involves looking inward a bit. It involves self-reflection and metacognition, which is a huge word in educational discourse these days. Because we have to understand what we know, what we don't know, what we need to know to reach our desired end state, right? So the question becomes, how can we design writing tasks that promote attunement? Well, I'm thinking, it's a work in progress, but I have a couple ideas. So first off, we need to make sure we assign writing tasks that are highly contextualized. So generative AI is really good at dealing in abstractions, but they provide little help in dealing with highly specific concrete problems. So if you move your students to engage with these problems, you limit the impact of AI. So how do we contextualize writing tasks? Well, we can demand that students write for real audiences and real purposes. So this is very different than writing in school, which often involves just writing to the teacher to display knowledge, right? But we want to shake that up. We want to make students write to other audiences for other purposes. And when we do this, it introduces complications that students have to deal with, which helps them cultivate attunement. Also, we need to assign writing tasks that have detailed parameters for output. And I mean this both in terms of formal features and in terms of the enactment of certain skills. So I remember when I was in college, we would get assignments that were basically like this. Write an essay about something related to the class. And then there'd be a page count, 5 or 7 pages, right? And as someone who studies writing now, this seems like such a strange assignment, because it's the idea that there's this thing that's an essay that's totally decontextualized, right? And that's a agreed upon thing. Seems very alien to me. But I think in some other parts of the university, there are still assignments like this, which AI, I think, is going to kill them. So just compare this to, in my first year writing class, my first year composition course, my students' first assignment, they write an essay But these are the requirements. So they must use the they say, I say format, which is a certain way of responding to a text. They must display understanding of the they say, plus the ability to formulate a response. They must include a variety of small formal things like an introduction, a title. They must use something called the quote sandwich. They must have paragraphs with topic sentences. They must analyze evidence in a certain way that they're taught. They must have a chart that is formatted in a certain way with certain captions done a certain way. They also must have, they must communicate the ideas visually also in a way that I teach. And this is all stuff I teach in the class, often using my own like specialized vocabulary. So you can't ask ChatGPT to do this stuff because it has no idea, right? So this assignment, because the output parameters are so detailed, is a highly contextualized writing assignment. It's thus something that AI would have a lot of difficulty with, etc. There's more. All right, so contextualization, another thing we need to do is we need to get students to apply knowledge, not just explain stuff, but like kind of put knowledge to work. So here's an example of that. So you're in a psychology class, say, you may this type of question on a test or something. Explain the bystander effect and some recent critiques of the concept. Now, this is an assignment that AI can do in 2 seconds, right? Okay, but what if we change this assignment to this? Analyze a recent viral video using the concept of the bystander effect. Do the events depicted suggest the bystander effect occurred in this case? Now, the student, to answer this question, has to have an internalized understanding of the bystander effect, and they need to apply it to an object. And though there's been advances in multimodal use of AI, ChatGPT 4 still can't do this. So this would be a way to bypass AI technology. All right, so that's application. Another thing that we all know, but it's worth reminding everyone, is the importance of detailed, highly specific writing. So as we know, AI is good at producing vague, smart-sounding, but absolutely vacuous text. We just need to train ourselves to reject drivel. If we reject like meaningless writing and give it bad grades, students will get the point. So here's an example. This is from a student text. It's in they say, I say format. They're responding to a writer about AI. And they write, while these are exciting possibilities, Lee's argument overlooks the potential negative consequences and ethical implications of AI. AI has the potential to displace millions of jobs and exacerbate existing inequalities if not implemented thoughtfully. Additionally, if AI is trained on biased data, it can perpetuate biases and discrimination. Therefore, it is crucial to consider a balanced approach to integrating AI into our daily lives that addresses the potential negative consequences and ethical implications of AI. Only then can we harness its potential to truly advance human progress and well-being. All right, so is this good writing? No. This is very bad writing. And this is bad writing because imagine, could anyone disagree with this? No, this is like politician speak. It exists at this very high level of abstraction, but doesn't really say anything. It's basically saying, good things are good. Maybe this could be a place that you could start an essay, but it's not the place you can end it. It's not the type of writing we want. And this happens to be the type of writing that AI is great at, kind of perfect prose that's utterly meaningless. So we just need to train ourselves to reject this. All right, and finally, and something that I am really thinking is more and more important, is we need to embrace multimodality. So text and writing is just one of the many ways humans can communicate. Traditionally, it's held a very high place in academia, and there are good reasons for this. Elaborated prose, or what we call academic discourse, is a very powerful tool for creating and sharing knowledge, but it's not the only way we can create and share knowledge. So what if instead of having your students write an essay, you had your students make a video or a podcast or stage a debate? All these are ways students can create and share knowledge, and ways that are less susceptible to misuse of AI. So if we want to start moving away from a monomodal orientation towards a multimodal orientation, what do we need to know? Well, I think we need to know, first off, some basic vocab. So what do I mean by mode or communication mode? Well, communication mode, there's complicated technical definitions, but I don't really understand them. Modes are just ways of delivering information. That's what I tell my students, and I think that's a very good definition. So right now, I'm using the verbal mode. I'm speaking. I'm using the textual mode. I'm showing you pieces of text. I'm using the gestural mode. I'm gesturing. I'm using the spatial mode. See how I put the words in a box together? The words are together because they are related. So I'm communicating that idea spatially. And also, I may use the visual mode and communicate via pictures. So in my experience, these are kind of the 5 modes you need to know. And multimodality is simply the idea that we communicate best when we combine modes. So a multimodal document combines modes. And as a general rule, when we're communicating, we want to try to use all the modes. That's basically all the theory you need to know. But interestingly, just knowing these simple ideas, they kind of reshape how you understand communication, often. So for teachers especially, I think there can be problems because they know the academic essay is a way that they can, a genre they can have their students create, but they don't know any multimodal genres. So I would like to close just by introducing some common multimodal genres. Infographic, you guys may know of this. It's a visual representation of an idea. Narrated slideshow, this is basically a PowerPoint presentation you speak over. It has lots of benefits for teachers and students. But today I'd like to close by discussing something called the reading deck. Reading deck is a simple genre I really like. It moves students to communicate in textual modes, visual mode, and spatial mode. So here is a sample reading deck. So this is from my first year writing class. This is my final assignment. For the assignment, students must make an argument that one design is better than another design. So they have to find an object within their world. It has to be something from their own life. They have to explain why it's poorly designed and propose an alternative design. Very importantly, though, they have to support their claim with photos that they take themselves. So right away, I bet you're seeing that this assignment enacts a lot of the principles I was talking about, right? It's highly contextualized. It involves doing stuff, using knowledge. It involves multimodal communication. So here's an example of what a student created. So her badly designed object is the pizza wheel. It's like the wheel that cuts pizza, and she claims this thing called the mezzaluna, like the horseshoe thing, is a better tool. So there's her table of contents. Here's a slide where she talks about the mezzaluna. She communicates visually and in the textual mode. Here is a slide where she shows very good spatial communication skills. So see how she organizes the facts about the mezzaluna on one side, the wheel knife on the other. She's communicating spatially. And here, she narrates her interaction with the pizza wheel. So she's making an argument that the pizza wheel is badly designed. She shows herself using the pizza wheel and messing up her pizza, right? And she communicates this idea in both text and visually. And then she has more text where she kind of like finishes her argument, explains why the mezzaluna is bitter. So I really like this assignment. I like the reading deck genre, but I also like this assignment because, as I said, it does all the things I've been talking about, right? So this assignment makes a student go out and like study their world, interact with their world, and document it. It also makes them apply knowledge, because we had been like studying what is good design, what is bad design. So rather than just explaining it, they have to go find something that's poorly designed, explain why it's poorly designed, then they have to create a document that's well designed. So they're applying knowledge. Also, it has some detailed, highly specific writing, and it forces the user to communicate their ideas multimodally. So, if you're interested in this assignment or other multimodal genres I discussed, there are samples in my course material or my supplemental materials. There are also even like lesson plans about how you can introduce this stuff to your students. All right, so just to close, today I've discussed generative AI and some ways we might approach it as teachers. Of course, every student population is different, and the exact approach we will use will need to vary based on context. I've argued, though, that it's probably futile to try to hide AI tools from students. Instead, we need to discuss these tools and move students to reflect on how they can help them or hinder them in their education. I've also suggested that we may need to change the way we teach. Highly contextualized tasks that demand students do stuff in the real world and communicate via a full range of modes I've tried to show can both limit the utility of AI tools as well as cultivate the modern literacy skills students need.